Refusing to linger in bed, Lumi slowly stood, placing her feet firmly against the wooded floor that creaked beneath her. Lumi quickly raised her arms, gently removing the bandages safely tied to her neck, her cyan eyes gracefully darting toward DX Nox, softly smiling. "If you're up to it, we should continue training," DX Nox calmly added. "I wanted to go over what you did wrong during our match." Lumi's eyes widened, betraying her joyful expression. Her eyes fell toward the folded bandage in her shaky hands, before muttering, "Maybe I'm not skilled. Unlike what my dad said, I made enough mistakes to have it brought into discussion." "Hey, Lumi, it's all right, don't panic," DX Nox calmly reassured Lumi. Noticing her hands, "I believe your father, although I never met him, is right. You are skilled. Better than me, however, you have a lack of experience in real combat." I do you." "Thank you," Lumi softly muttered, wiping a tear from her cheek. "No need," DX Nox answered, elegantly walking toward the door with muffled footsteps. "Just get ready. I'll wait for you outside." Hastily, muffled footsteps stepped closer toward the door. DX Nox slowly opened the door, closing it behind him when he left. His footsteps continued outside the room, grass crunching beneath each step, while he made his way toward the storage area in search of Uriel. Slowly, DX Nox knocked on the wall before peering into the brightly lit storage area, finding Uriel sitting peacefully on the floor. Reading a book titled The Basics of Catalyst Less Magic, DX Nox stared intently at Uriel, who was blankly staring at the page as if it was written in an ancient dialect. "First time I've seen you stumped before. Is everything all right?" DX Nox curiously asked, entering the room. DX walked firmly, taking a seat next to Uriel, who gave him a perplexed expression. Uriel's golden eyes stared at DX before a slight chuckle escaped the white-haired man. "I can't understand this. I have read this page over 100 times by now. It's complete nonsense." Breaking out in laughter, DX Nox wiped tears from his face. "Of course, it makes no sense. You don't know the basics of magic, yet you want to learn the basics of an advanced subject in magic." Slowly putting the book onto the pile, Uriel chuckled along with DX. "I can't believe it. I was reading the wrong book for over an hour. I'm so stupid." Suddenly coughing, DX Nox struggled to breathe from laughing, going to give up or look for the basic magic book. Uriel stared blankly at DX, hoping an answer would slap him hard. Lumi's gaze was fixed upon her wooden door closing, and DX Nox's footsteps grew faint in the distance, before slowly turning around and sighing loudly, walking toward her closet. "What should I wear?" Lumi asked, rummaging through her clothes. "I'll go with the usual." Glancing around, Lumi slowly began taking off her filthy clothes, throwing them into a neat pile on the floor. Reaching into her closet, Lumi pulled out her usual uniform, dressing her nude body in her elegant white blouse worn under a white vest fitting snugly over blue pants which reached to her black shoes. Reaching for her door, Lumi's hand began violently shaking as her heart rate rapidly increased. "Am I skilled?" Lumi asked herself between shallow breaths. "Can I even improve?" Lumi stood still, releasing her grip on the handle. She walked toward her cabinet, fetching a blue sash and attaching it around her waist with a small golden pendant. Her mind reminisced over the words of her father, mother, and even DX Nox. "I wish you were still here, Dad. Maybe you would tell me the truth," Lumi muttered to herself, placing her hand on the door handle. "That settles it. I will become someone worthy of respect." Slowly, Lumi creaked open the door, watching the vast rays of light intrude from the noon sun. Taking a step on green grass, Lumi breathes deeply in, taking in her wonderful garden, devoid of insects or even living creatures, yet flourishing with flowers. Looking for DX Nox, Lumi began walking around her garden, each step crunching the grass below, slowly peeking her head into each building. Lumi began wondering where DX was, until she came closer to the storage area and heard the friendly chatter about magic between DX Nox and Uriel. Stepping inside, Lumi catches the attention of DX Nox before he curiously asks, "Hey, Lumi, perfect timing. Uriel and I were going through the magic books, and all of them were signed by the god of magic. Do you know who that is?" Stammering back in surprise, Lumi quickly answers, "Yes, I do know who that is. Why is it important?" Uriel wants to learn magic and got confused when reading the basics of Catalyst Less Magic. "I tried convincing him to find an easier book, but he insisted on asking you," DX jokingly answered. "You promised you wouldn't tell her," Uriel embarrassingly stated with a deep sigh. "But he's telling the truth. I need help, care, to give it." Lumi stood straight, looking directly into Uriel's golden eyes. "I would be happy to teach you, once I can cast magic without thinking of Ajax again, and after DX trains me. Guess that will work, Uriel shamefully admitted. I'm sure you can do it. A few minutes later, the trio sat outside in a wide, empty area south of the garden. Lumi and DX held wooden versions of their main weapons, and Uriel sat calmly on a stump reading a book while eating some potato chips he randomly created, flavored with beef, his favorite. Yes. Did Uriel create food out of nothing, Lumi curiously thought. I thought he didn't know magic, unless it's an ability he was born with. The best bet would make Uriel and DX have a friendly fight, could help me teach him the right spells. Lumi gradually approached DX Nox, getting into a fighting position, one where her sword was aimed straight up, the tip acting like a sight aimed at DX's neck. Before she started swinging the sword, DX Nox calmly watched. During our duel, you were too curious. You didn't remember where you dropped my falchion. You didn't expect my unorthodox counters, and you reacted to my actions, DX Nox calmly stated over Lumi's swinging. But when you did act, you never followed through on them, giving me time to adjust. Too curious? What do you mean, Lumi curiously asked, continuing to swing. You dropped my falchion after you took it, and I made a mistake by staring at it, showing you what I was going for. But instead of preventing me from doing so, you focused your attention on what I was staring at, DX Nox quickly answered. So, I'll teach you how I taught myself. Uriel watched curiously, enjoying his beef-flavored chips while reading a book titled Legends Among the Gods. He was currently on the 700th page, one about the mysterious god known as the Mother. For the briefest moment, Lumi stood still, slowly moving her body into a fighting stance, one favored by her father, fit for a madman. Her body turned to the right, her left arm raised high, and her hand wide open. Her sword posed firmly behind her, its tip pointed forward, ready to carve the air. Suddenly, a soft sigh escaped her lips, before she lowered her body, quietly muttering that she is not worthy of such a technique. However, lifting her head, she had a steel gaze fixed upon Uriel, sitting on a rotten stump, reading a book while eating his favorite chips. When a perked-up voice rang from Lumi, disrupting his thoughts, Uriel, would it be all right with you if you dueled DX Nox? I want a grasp of your fighting style. It would make finding the right spells for you easier. Uriel, slightly annoyed, turned his head down toward the page number before he committed it to memory. I could do that if he agreed as well, Uriel curiously asked, turning his head toward DX Nox. But how would that help? Learning magic that contrasts your fighting style from the get-go is an easy way to fail at magic. Quoted exactly as I was taught, Lumi confidently exclaimed, shifting her gaze toward DX. How about it? Care to help out? DX Nox turned his gaze toward Uriel and his overflowing aura. All right, I'll do it. Maybe I'll finally answer who is truly stronger, DX answered with a slightly nervous chuckle. He could sense the near-bottomless manner emanating from Uriel. Although the sky remained frozen in place, DX Nox and Uriel knew hours had passed. They stood waiting for Lumi in an open field, the same one used when DX fought her. Soon the silence was broken by the slight pitter-patter of light feet stepping on damp grass. Lumi slowly approached, with a small bag filled with magical crystals, each glowing a slightly blue hue. Reaching the familiar duo, Lumi places her bag on the ground near Uriel's feet before handing him one of the crystals, and with a chalk-like white crystal, she outlined a complex white circle with 3 distinct runes on the floor. Uriel's gaze was fixated upon the crystal, tracing each detail. Strange. Normally, I can see the atomic structure of things, but not for this. What is it? Uriel curiously asked. It's crystallized mana, Lumi confidently answered, adding the final touches to the circle. I need you to activate a spell for me, and I don't know if you know mana manipulation, so I gave you that. Standing in the circle, Lumi continued, you don't need to worry. It's to help me watch the fight, because I'm not sure I would be able to normally. You two are. Far too fast for my eyes. Uriel nodded, stepping into the circle while rubbing his finger against the smooth surface of the crystal. With directions from Lumi, he threw it against the circle, causing it to shatter, and its mana flowed out into the mana-absorbing chalk. The intricately drawn circle began glowing a faint blue hue, and its runes began glowing the same while floating up and spinning around Uriel, opening a portal directly in front of him, showcasing his every move like a camera's recording. Then, just as suddenly as they appeared, they vanished. in a haze filled with a slight crackle. Both Dix and Uriel began walking away from Lumi further into the plains, while she watched them patiently through the portal. Upon reaching a significant distance away, Dix Nox stared gracefully at Uriel, his grey eyes on Uriel's bare hands. Clenching his falchion this time real, instead of would, Dix Nox asked, "Do you mind going all out? It has been quite some time since my last good stretch." Uriel nodded, slowly blinking. Dix's mana grew wildly before unleashing a spell, the Endless Forest of Verdant. Instantly, everything went dark, and a deep green forest grew from him, spreading out in all directions like a virus. An infinite obstacle, filled with massive pine trees reaching for the sky. Uriel stood in stunned amazement, his golden eyes tracing the surroundings. Once again Uriel blinked. When Dix Nox materialized behind him, mid-swing toward his neck. The blade etched closer, and Uriel was gone. A single trail of felled trees followed Uriel's escape. He stood, eyes glaring back at Dix, blood leaking from a small cut on his neck. Uriel stood calmly, a small golden pebble formed in front of him, launching with unparalleled speed, turning the very trees into mere smudges of blur. Uriel watched the pebble fly with grace, hitting Dx's left arm with a force that tore it straight off. "Hey, Lumi, I just realized I needed to ask you something. Although I can't remember what he muttered under his breath. I'll tell you after I win." Uriel blinked, as Dix instantly closed the distance, his arm regrowing with haste. His falchion, glowing a deep red, aimed at Uriel's arm. With a swift cut, the blade hit Uriel, but his skin felt impregnable. However, his body did not resist the force, instead launching away through several trees. With a handful of golden pebbles appearing behind Dix, tumbling through the air, Uriel's body instinctively closed his eyes and deleted his momentum. Elegantly he floated toward the ground. Debris and dust flowed past him. Contemplating his next move, Uriel held out his hand, a small golden spear materializing. Dix Nox rapidly appeared in front of Uriel, stabbing his falchion forward. Uriel's body moved on its own, barely blocking the attack with his spear. Then, with a sudden glare, Uriel's golden eyes were locked onto Dix Nox's arm, flinging it back with Dix. Multiple golden pebbles appeared behind Dix, lodging themselves inside his back. Dix Nox crashed through the trees, each losing their individuality in a haze of speed, their colors merged, becoming a solid, sickly brown. Dix hastily dug his legs into the ground, slowing his movements. Raising his falchion, Dix Nox's carved muscles twitched and buckled, and the dark red spine on his weapon began vibrantly growing a neon red. Then, he swung his sword, hitting nothing but the air. However, a sudden sickening wave of mana swept over the forest, charring anything it touched. Gone was the bountiful forest. Lumi sat playfully on the ground, chowing down on Uriel's chips, watching him and Dix as they walk around each other. "Uriel seems to like staying away and hitting with range, so maybe I can teach him causality manipulation." Lumi contemplated. It wouldn't help against any of the gods, especially EGS. They all seem immune. But I never expected a human would use property manipulation. "Uriel, I'm sorry about this," Dix Nox subtly muttered, gripping his falchion tighter. Then, faster than an instant, he appeared behind Uriel. His falchion blade pointed away, and he hit Uriel away with its spine. Uriel flew a short distance away, increasing his density to stop quicker. Giving Dix one final look before his left eye started bleeding and he passed out, holding 2 black beads. Lumi continued to watch Uriel, being lifted by Dix Nox while he returned to Lumi's reality. She continued to write in a small leather-bound notebook about possible spells for Uriel, not worrying about him in the slightest, believing he could regenerate just like her and Dix. Soon after, Lumi leaves the arena, heading toward her storage area, where she is looking through some of the books, specifically for teleportation. Book after book she read through and ignored. However, something felt off. Footsteps crept in, a deep, cold breath tingling her neck. Suddenly, she jerked around to find Uriel, bandaged up and limping toward her. Didn't know you were up, she stated, looking through the books once more. Did you need something? Oh, nothing really, Uriel admitted. I just wanted to ask that question I mentioned. Slowly, Lumi placed a book back onto the shelf, turning around expectantly. Uriel straightened his back, wiping the dust off his clothes. I was reading a book called Legends Among the Gods, and one of them piqued my interest. Uriel professed, could we go and meet the mother I read? She is the god of spell creation, and I thought she might be able to bring her back. Remembering the name, Lumi stood still, sweat dripping from her head. Wasn't she the one who said she won against Abraxas before? Lumi wondered. Then maybe we could learn from her. But I'm not ready for crazy just yet. Sure, we can go, Lumi continued. Let's just wait. You used a lot of mana during that fight. Wouldn't hurt to replenish it. An endless hallway crept, lit by extinguished torches. Walls of bluish stone danced a pristine yet worn facade. Lumi and Uriel stood upon black tiling amid cold, mana-devoid air. Shivers flew down Lumi's spine, swirling with woe. Uriel remained unaffected. Lumi gripped a book bound in a sickly green devourer skin cover, its slimy algae texture squished into her fingers, releasing a foul scent, burning and pillaging Uriel's nose hair. Unknowingly, he walked through its mana, oozing into the air. The tiles echoed quiet, negligible footsteps. A surface so smooth as if carved by a god. Lumi's mind wandered, jumping back to her garden, returning to seemingly friendlier days. The day was beautiful, as it always was, a clear, cloudless sky. Forever stuck at noon, the sun glared down with its delightful glee, shining its golden gaze onto the blossoming roses, filling the air with flavors. Lumi stood in a beige storage room, holding a book. One bound in leather, small, bold letters elegantly written on top. The basic types of teleportation spells, signed Arnikara, the god of magic. Lumi, however, wasn't reading it, but staring at Uriel and the bandages wrapped around his neck. You've already recovered your mana? Lumi questioned, loudly. It's only been a few minutes since I asked you to recover it. Are you sure? Uriel nodded slightly. I did what you asked. Can we leave? Nauseating silence snapped her back. Thought slowly returned. Continuing their walk, they longed for the sweet scent of rose over the foul rot bombarding them. Her fingers were tightly wrapped around the book, wishing she'd brought its entire case from that bookshelf. At least then her senses would adjust to the mana-devoid air. Instead, they were attacked by the overwhelming mana dripping from the book. Dampening her senses, thoughts slowly returned to the garden and retrieval of the book she so tightly held, and on the other side of the room. A bookshelf, slightly taller than its neighbours, blended into the walls, holding a single book. Locked, in a box, made from clear metal, sparkling, as if reflecting a night sky. Grabbing the book, Lumi made her way outside, the grass crunching beneath her, hearing Dex Nox praying out of sight, contemplating if she knew where her realm was. I guess I don't, Lumi muttered, wandering to a dark table, papers and books littering its dotted surface. Digging in the pile and retrieving a letter. She was at the banquet. Surely you know where she lives. Lumi's shoddy handwriting from her failed attempt laughed at her while she carried it. Neatly folding it, she hobbled toward Uriel, asking to send the letter, or they'd never reach the mother. A single sharp splash of water echoed at Uriel's feet, leaking the eons-old water into his leathery shoes, breaking Lumi's thoughts, forcing her to endure the walls miserably drowning. Sweat dripped from her, I completely forgot. We're going to meet her, the god of spell creation. The mother. The one who won against Abraxas using curse magic. The magic was underused and undeveloped. No god considered it a threat. No one. Not even Abraxas, the god of swordplay, considered it, regardless of his status as upper rank 5. Yet she did. If any would, it would be her. The enigma who would leave questions over answers. One who would lie, deceive, or even kill if it suited her. Maybe that's false? Lumi questioned. Maybe she won't kill us for intruding. I doubt he asked permission before opening that portal. Deepening and freezing. The air pushed in from all sides, crystallizing the sweat on Lumi's head. An intensifying groan echoed throughout, collapsing in from all sides as if the walls begged, hoping to flee. A thin blanket of ice grew, rapidly melting into negligible droplets of air. Lumi's spine willowed, shivering away from the sound. The groan faded, releasing the tightening grip around her bones, allowing her to breathe and sweat to drool. Gnaws of sweat dripped, her body drenched. Yet she watched Uriel, his pace unchanging, his face unmoved. Short, shallow gulps escaped the beating of her chest, struggling to understand. He didn't react? Did it happen? Or was her mind simply faking it? He would have reacted. Lumi stammered, air clamped in her throat. The walls turned to ice. But he didn't care. No motion or sound. No sigh or grunt. Faint blue light exited Lumi's eyes, sweat rolling down her cheek, her gaze weak and drippy. How, just how, are you so uncaringly calm? It's annoying. Shouldn't I be? Uriel answered, slowly turning his body, his golden eyes glued on Lumi's every detail. Did something happen? I can do this alone if you need to go. Go by yourself. We know nothing about this god, Lumi declared. What is there within reality that you need to speak to her? You could have asked me to meet any god, yet you chose her. Why? You aren't even nervous. She isn't like us. She can kill us, easily. You are so arrogant if you believe you can win. Stammering back, Uriel's eyes widened. His fingers twitched and he nearly fell. A drop of sweat fell from his hair. His hearing focused on Lumi's rapid heartbeat and shallow breaths. Why do you care? You know nothing of me, Uriel announced. Nothing. You will never understand. You haven't lost anyone, but Ajax and you barely knew him. His voice rapid and his heart raged with slight welts of tears boiling. I will do it for her, Uriel thought. His legs buckled and shivered, his bones soft. He tried speaking, but his voice clamped, wilting into soft sobs. Tears flowed down his face and his body collapsed into an unclean pile. His head was placed upon his knees and his arms hugged them tightly. Nothing, he muttered repeatedly. You will never understand. I need her. Lumi stepped forward in an unruly act. You cry over what? Her? She spat. Acting like you're so special, Uriel's mind cracked, burning as if boiled alive. Thoughts and whims were stagnant. She must help, he repeated, to bring them back. Raining down a tsunami of tears, they just stopped. His body crumpled as if it were dying, releasing not a sound, only the bitter stench of salt. Rose, he softly muttered, his body frozen. Sounds of faint breathing exited his bobbing lungs. Yuki, Lily. Her eyes shot open, her spine bellowing and beckoning. Clearing her thoughts, ones of frustration and hatred. "Uriel, are you alive?" Lumi pleaded, kneeling and her heart burning. "What have I done? This can't be my fault, right?" "Rose," he muttered, shallowly, saliva dripping from his mouth. Is that you?" "I got so angry," Lumi mumbled, sitting next to Uriel and sighing softly. "Over what? Your calmness?" Firmly against the wall, her back arched forward, staring blankly at Uriel. A deep, cathartic rhyme bounced on her chest. Her fingers tightened. Bringing the book, Lumi pressed it against her face. "Rose? Why have you been so quiet about her? I guess that made me believe you were..." "Over her," Lumi muttered, an empty stare glaring at the coarse book. "I can't explain why I was so... angry. I'm only guessing I was jealous, envious. After all, you and Diex are so... powerful. I'm just Lumi, the weakest god. I didn't think about how you felt, losing your wife and kids. I was too focused on my problems, on Ajax. I never cared," Lumi continued. "I am sorry. I hope you forgive me. I promise I'll think about your issues first. Please, wake up, please." Lowering her head, the book drooling to the side, tears formed in her eyes. "This is my fault, isn't it?" Small, wet splotches appeared on the ground. Falling from the silent, crying of Lumi. "Yuki, Lily," Uriel begged, softly, "where are you?" Silence blocked all sounds. His words cut deep and stabbed at her throat. Catching her voice, a mouse caught in a trap. "That's right. I never asked about his children. I never even cared enough to ask about them, about their ages, or what their names are." Lumi muttered, tears falling onto Uriel's hair. "Am I better than EGS? Am I just as evil as he? Am I better?" Lumi murmured, slapping her head against the wall. "I can fix this, right? If I'm better than him, I should help. I must help Uriel. The least I can do. I am not worse than EGS." Her hands shot to the side of her head, grasping strands of hair. The book dropped against Uriel's nose. A foul taste of rotten, mushy bananas seeped in, dancing upon his tongue, sticking in his teeth. Lumi's fingers tightened, ripping out small strands of hair. How do I fix this? I should wake him, but how? I wasn't taught about humans. It was so sudden, he didn't give me time to react. Does this happen often? How do I help? Uriel, please, anything. Deep whistling echoed over recently cut grass. Briskly, a breeze carried distant chatter toward a girl, her hair a sunset pink and her eyes were bubblegum blue. Squirming in the dirt, the girl smeared fresh mud across her oversized grey shirt, and her blushing cheeks were splashed with red. "Cuddles!" she giggled, chaotically waving her legs. "Oh, master, please give me more." Her eyes leered at the gleaming camp above. Sounds of gods babbling buzzed on top of the mossy hillock. "I wish Master was watching. It's my first solo mission after all," she moaned, childishly. Grass and moss crunching above. Leaping from the mud, she noticed her muddied shirt. "No!" she screamed, extending the word, worry bobbing in her eyes. "Tino is going to be mad. Being yelled at sucks." Tears slithered like a leaky ceiling down her face. "Ziri, I could blame him," she argued, inching toward the camp. "Tinon is too smart. She'd never believe he would do it, because he is busy with his toy." "Rebellas," she happily declared with a wide, toothy grin. "I can blame them. It's perfect." She grew closer to the camp, stepping over the mossy grass which dug between her toes. Forming a deep rose-red blush, she giggled. "Master will be so proud when I kill these gods." With curious gazes, the gods watched the girl enter the camp. White and gold buildings stood, lifted into the sky. The strange architecture appeared like slithery snakes, dancing within sunlit shadows. Footsteps deeply echoed, trailing a burly god, cloaked in an orange polka-dot shirt. His white eyes blared at the child, his braided green hair swayed firmly. "Erno is the name, rodent. I am overseer of this camp and an upper-ranked god," he spat, straightening his shirt's buttons. "This realm is private. State your purpose and leave." She sparkled, smiling the happiest little smile Erno had ever seen, muttering softly, "Boo, you aren't a titled god." The girl vanished from Erno's sight. "Master is so gentle, giving me boring fighters to make my first lonely mission easier," she thought, mudding the tallest building walls. Before, instantly appearing behind Erno, placing her hand against his back. Forcing her hand forward, it exclaimed a rapid, swirling shockwave, which vaporized gods and buildings. Erno erupted away, his life faded from grasp. Fumbling through reality, Erno eradicated space within his trail. Inhaling moss-filled air, the girl enjoyed the hard stench of molten gold, tingling her senses. Her human body staggered forward. A playful, cat-like smirk dawned on her softly blushing face. "Master," she moaned, squeaking. "Hide and seek!" the girl screamed, joyfully scanning around. Slowly, her hands raised. Vividly, a sense of wonder perked in her bubbling eyes. She strolled through the vanquished camp. Her innocent smile grew, expanding wider upon noticing a group of gods. Their golden glares beamed at her, horror stripping their emotions like the pale visage adorning a rotten corpse. "Yay!" she snickered. "You've been caught." The god jerked back, his muscles burned and ached with a cold terror. "We aren't at war with humans," he screamed with twirling eyes. "So why? You had no business with us." "Cuddles," she answers. The god, with his widening eyes and gaping mouth, wondered, "Seriously? Hundreds of gods killed over cuddles?" "Or playtime is over," replied the girl softly. "Master needs me to finish." Sound bombarded the surroundings, echoing after gently snapping her fingers. Reducing the pitiful realm to dust, soon forgotten by all. Shrouding darkness swallowed everything, fading into nothing. Destroyed reality hovered around the girl, waving her hands. "I did it! Master will be so proud of me!" A portal shyly widened, trailing before her. Radiating with a precious blue pulse, it illuminated the vast void of nothing, which mocked the very notion of light. Dragging the girl magically toward the blue warble. Standing amid grassy concrete lit by a purple sun, her soft skin felt the air bouncing lightly. Fresh beef stench departed from white flowers. "Tino!" she giggled, leaving a warm happiness against the orange sky. She watched a woman stand, her body naked and her skin an obsidian black. A deep red left eye glowed with a precious intensity. Her right was a neon green, burning with an unquenchable passion, perking up her long and pointy ears. "Was it fun, sweetie?" questioned Tinan. Her snow-white hair was messy but magically shielded her exposed breasts. "Zaline, you're muddy. Did you play in mud while on a mission?" "No, I was pushed into a puddle by rebels. I was dreaming of cuddles, then they came, boom, out of nowhere," Zerline professed, darting her eyes away. Slowly, Tinon crept forward, warping the sun's colour with each beat of her heart. "Rebels?" Tino questioned, staring down at Zerline. You always say rebellers, unless you're lying. Must I tell Master you are banned from cuddles for 3 decades? You know you shouldn't play during missions. You can't. Tina, please. I'll clean it. Please don't tell Master. I want cuddles. Zerline pleaded, shooting her eyes open. Down. The sun bathed a green glow, warming the blue grass. Tion sighed deeply. I'll let you off. Go put on another shirt. I'll clean it. After all, it was your first solo mission. Good job, sweetie. Go get some rest. Zulin's eyes sparkled, gleaming with unfathomable joy. Shouting with a larger-than-life smile, Thank you, Tino. I swear, it won't happen again. Such a shame that she needs to work after Abraxas's rebellion. It should be quick at least, Tinon thought, watching Zerline fade into a white fog. Hopefully, my boys don't grow too fast while I work. If I miss any of their lives, I'd be a terrible mother. Rotating gently, Tinon's gaze captured a green, semi-transparent ball amidst the air. She dropped to her knees, her back hanging in a respectful bow. Her breathing steady, she hesitantly stood, a smile twisting upon her face. System. It's a pleasure, said Tinon, her eyes tingling with excitement, awaiting her orders from System.